think is a big deal. Sorry.
What have you found about the amount of time that people can sustain attention?
Fantastic point. Fantastic point. So, though I'm not sure if you got hurt, but the ability to sustain attention. I think there's two issues there, right? One of them is the natural human need to take a step back and consolidate what you've just heard. The other one, though, is not everybody can hang out in VR that long. I'm a little surprised. So I mentioned earlier we've got this lab, and all it's really doing right now is teaching a little Unity and letting people experience it. And it's surprising to me sometimes how some people just can't sit in VR for very long. Either they get sick or they just don't, they feel something like claustrophobic, I assume. So I think that's something to get worked out, and I think that, you know, it could be that some people need AR and not VR, and they're not okay with being immersed.
Where I was going with that question is, it seems to me that some people are just going to get tired of paying attention. You know, in a classroom, you can look out the window and kind of tune out, but when you're in a VR situation, there's no virtual window to look out. You could look away from what's supposed to be the thing that you're looking at. So maybe there's a virtual looking out the window. But it seems to me that the virtual reality setting kind of commands your attention. And after a while, people are going to get tired of being in such a heightened state of awareness, and they're just going to tune out.
Get exhausted. Exactly, that's a fantastic segue to the next point. So I was saying that hardware feedback allows you to know what's going on with somebody. And if you think about, you forget about VR, think about how many times you've watched the video when your mind wasn't there, when your just head was somewhere else. You watch and you're like, what the hell did I just watch? What the hell did I just watch? So I think that the fact that the hardware is able to key off of what you're doing, and eyes are a fantastic indicator of how interested you are. So that's actually, I haven't seen that enough. I know it's being worked on, but I haven't seen a lot of it. The idea, are you guys okay with this? Sorry. But I think that eye tracking and even pupil dilation are things that will be a part of this. And it already, I mean, you think about what Magic Leap is doing, and at least one other person is doing that. People are paying attention to what your eyes are doing already. So I think that would be one way out of that, is that when people get, you know, when they're obviously not paying attention or they're backing off, you do something else. I think that's a content problem then, but at least I think, unlike other things where it'd be expensive and hard to figure out where your attention is, the fact that you're so immersed in it, it's so close to you, I think gives an opportunity.
I was wondering, you know, I'm with everything you're describing, and I'm wondering if you thought about this in comparison to games or play and education, because there you have hardware feedback, there you have context and content combined. The major difference, at least as of now, is that the virtual environment that you're in theory in is 2D and not 3D, or is not as, you know, the sense of presence is different. So I'm wondering, like, have you thought about, like, is this like just an advancement of the hardware feedback, context and content setting, and sort of the other things that one might get out of game design? Even things like, you know, learning the controls. You have to learn the controls. A good game you have to walk into and know how to play almost instantly, or else it's not successful. So I'm wondering about sort of how that factors into your estimations.
I think you're right. I hadn't thought that hard about it, but my immediate reaction is that's why gamification can be really powerful, because you're doing all the things you just described. The feedback a little bit less so, but that's why gamification can be really powerful, because it maintains engagement. And you're right. If people back off playing, you kind of know that they're not interested anymore.
Yeah. One of the things that we've discovered is basically that there's a little bit of a gap, right, between sort of game design as a school of thought and as a philosophy of approach, and traditional educational design as sort of a school of thought and approach. And what we're finding is actually that bringing the two together produces very interesting results from like a VR design standpoint, because the gamification principles translate beautifully to VR, and it introduces different questions to ask that we found educators and museum curators traditionally haven't had to think about in terms of the education design that they've been doing. It just introduces new variables like, how do you navigate this space?
Yeah, that's a really good addition, though. If you think about a lens through which to look at all this, you're right, it's games, it's doing a lot of this. So beyond that, It allows the system to understand comprehension, kind of an extension of the same thing. I think the air conditioned zone. And then, possibly more intuitive operation. The fact that the hardware is right there, I think allows you to dive into it a little bit more. Okay. The final piece, this is kind of my thing about being in a physical volume. I think that there's something different about processing. Raise your hand if you've done the tilt brush. So you guys know what the tilt brush is, though, if you haven't. This is the Google thing where you're in the Vive, actually, and you can paint, but you paint in 3D. So you paint something and you can walk around it and you can see what you painted as a physical thing. And the reason why I think that's really interesting and why it makes me think about volume and real 3D, and 3D you can inhabit, not just 3D that takes some glasses and get knocked on the head by a football in a movie, is because it allows us to process things the way our minds, I think, are meant to, which is as a 3D scene that you're in. I think there's a lot of opportunity for data visualization. There's a lot of opportunity for learning things in a different way. When you see spatial relations, and again, anybody here done one of these? Oculus has a good one. A walk through the solar system. A fantastic example, though, of what I mean, in that you see things related to each other in a way that our minds are just much better at processing than numbers or more flat things. So I think that's going to be a big deal. Learning can be situated, so we kind of talked about that as well. Being in a volume means that it's one thing to hear someone's voice, it's quite another if they're sitting right next to you and they're looking at you. There was a really good bit of VR that I encourage you to check out, where Bill Clinton sits right across from you and talks about what he's done, and he's right there. And there's something really different about physically being right there than just hearing him on TV. Plagiarizing. I had to throw it in. I was looking for an opportunity.
Does situated learning work as well with more like abstract topics? Like if I'm going to teach someone algebra,
Yeah.
like how does that translate to simulations? Because it seems like the closest thing to a simulation for algebra would be just doing algebra.
I see. That's an interesting question. I think things like math need to be abstract inside your mind, not so much how you represent them. You know what I mean? It's tough to show somebody more difficult bits of algebra. I mean, how to solve for x isn't so hard, but once you get into it. However, when I think of abstract, I don't think of algebra. I think of how to run a meeting. I think of things that are about how to interact with people. And I think VR is enormously good for that. I think that the ability, we do that anyway. Your mind simulates. That's why we tell stories. That's why we daydream, is we're in our minds simulating what would it be like to say this to that person. Well, VR is an opportunity to give a manager, what's it like to run your first meeting? What's it like to have to fire somebody? What's it like to hire somebody when they're really loud? Whatever it is. You can simulate things that are, in my mind, a different kind of abstraction. And I think situated, this kind of thing, simulations are perfect for it. Because it's not cut and dried. It's about faces and it's about nonverbal communication, which is tough to do unless you're more or less there. The hard part is going to be authoring that stuff without a bunch of actors. So one of the things a couple of you have talked about AI and VR. That's already coming. I mean, Facebook has this thing where they'll I don't even know if it's in VR, but they'll auto-generate a background for you. AI will do something that'll show the sky if you say sky. It'll say cloudy if you say cloudy. And I think we'll see more and more of that, where AI starts to create some of these things, so you don't have to have people and somebody hammering away on it in Unity.
Sort of tied into ideas of situated learning and talking about the Vive and its sort of potential in sort of content creation. One way that you can think about sort of taking a concept and making it situated, especially in like algebra geometry, is you can actually use your presence in VR to make something, right?
That's a good point.
The idea would be to use algebraic equations to design something, or something along the lines of that. There's a lot of people that are really into this idea of VR as a content creation platform rather than as a sort of Casper and interactive human platform. And so you can move into that direction with the situated context.
And it's also the type of thing that I think that the type of stuff that you guys are doing with sound engineering is great also, because VR provides the opportunity to apply theory that it may be difficult or expensive or whatever it is to apply in a classroom environment.
And we're almost there. Almost there.
I'll quickly add to that. VR, it's your imagination. Whatever you think, you know, when you daydream, like we were talking about, those thoughts that you have in your head, if you wish you're in space for that 1 second, VR really has that power to put you there. How many people here have tried VR, put on a headset yet? Everyone? Everyone, right? Pretty much?
If not, you've got an opportunity. Right
Yeah,
now.
I mean, I'm not going to totally bore you with audio stuff if you're not so into it, but you have to try as many experiences as possible. There's something out there that's going to vibe with you. It'll probably happen sooner than you think. It happened to me right away. Some people it takes 2 or 3 times, but the beautiful thing about VR is it could bring your imagination to life. Whatever thought you have, you could bring it to life in VR. So.
And also about math, I just want to add a few things about it. You can actually like use VR and AR for math and very theoretical subjects. Let me give you an example. Like, what is pi? It's really hard to explain. I can spend half an hour right
That's
now.
a good point. Yeah.
I cannot tell with words. But if I have a circle, if I let it go like that, I cannot even explain it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But it just explains what pi is in 10 seconds, and you can walk around it. You can do, or you can type a function and see what that function does in 3D. You can walk around it. You can see like volume, etc.
Yep. So some of the things that are already good with video are more so now because you can see them in that extra dimension. One of the things, so the last piece I talked about storytelling and gossip and all these ways that we practice for life, and I think that's mental modeling. And I think that more sophisticated mental models are possible when you're in 3D because you see interactions at that extra dimension. So that is what I had to say and we had a great discussion, which is awesome. Are there any questions or any other thoughts?
I just want to mention about cognitive load theory. That this theory is not enough to explain how people really learn. Because, for example, if I ask you to remember, I don't know, 20 words, cognitive load theory explains how to remember them today efficiently. So by the end of this session, you'll probably remember all 20 words. But will you remember them in a month?
Yep.
Cognitive load theory
Doesn't
explain.
address that.
Yeah, but
Yep.
it's very important in real life. You have training in any corporate training, K-12 training to create sustainable learning,
Yes.
knowledge.
Yes.
So we need to do something more like drill practice, spaced repetition, etc.
Yep, you're right. And I didn't speak to that because we just had 2 things that I thought would be a good start. But you know, the fact that you can walk back into that later is a way that you could use repetition learning and some other things.
But also, it's, if for example the 20 words and 10 of them easy to remember, but 2 are not that easy.
Yep.
I, as a learner, need to manage my way. But if you use something like AI, so for example, user know that this was more difficult than others, then it helps a lot. So if someone creates a personalized learning path, it really helps them. If it works together, this approach to sometimes it's much more powerful.
I think you're totally right. There's been a strain of AI called intelligent tutoring systems since the 70s. How they got anything done in the 70s, I don't know. But they've been working on exactly that, where the system models the learner and kind of understands if they're making that error, they probably don't get this. So let's make sure they do that. So I totally agree. Yeah. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sam. And while you talk, I'll load you up. So we have demo number 1. So as I was saying before, I'm so excited we've got a demo for our first meetup. If you guys have things you'd like to share, put them on meetup and we'll arrange for the next one.
So, got a slideshow, I'll fill you in. Thanks for having us, really great talk. So again, I'm Sam Fisher, founder and CEO of Audio Fusion, a music tech company here based in the city. Our first project, we're simulating recording studios, and I'm really excited to show you a first build, which is just on a phone, just gonna pass around. If you've never been in a recording studio, that's just a quick window into it. Feel free to pass it around during the talk. You got a clicker for me? Yeah, perfect.
Sideways.
Okay. So, that's a little bit about me. Aspiring audio guru, always looking for challenges to enhance my experience in respect to sound. I'm a self-taught musician, programmer, entrepreneur, and now a VR developer. My dream when I finished college was to give back and to make something that would make the audio engineering education process stronger in ways that I wish I had when I was a student, which wasn't that long before. Move on to tell about yourself in depth.
Sure. Hi guys, my name is Umut. I'm an audio engineer and an instructor. I've been teaching for more than 6 years now. Wow, I'm getting old. So it was really hard for me to teach certain things in a classroom setting, especially when it comes to recording, mixing, because they're really ambiguous. And I spent like hours explaining what game staging is, literally drawing a console. Like, it was a pain in the neck, you know? So when I met Sam, I was immediately like amazed to see that I can just log in to a website and show what it is. And then I realized, wait a minute, why don't we have these kids do this at home? Or even better, why don't we do this all together? Everybody logs in, they can see each other. Of course, this is in the future now, it's just ideas. But what I'm saying is virtual reality saves time, is way more efficient, and people learn better. When I show this to students, they were like, okay, when do we start? Like, bring it, you know? I'm like, okay, wait a minute, we are gonna work on it. But long story short, for audio engineering education, this is an amazing tool, and there's just something very beautiful about being immersed in an environment and just move around and touch things. Because I think the keyword is active. You actively learn something instead of passively sitting there. I think that's the most important thing. So I'm really glad that I'm working on this.
So check it out. Our mission at Audio Fusion is to empower audio education, career advancement, and productivity in the field. So with that, our first product was to create a studio that people can access anytime, anywhere. Now, when I first started this project, it was a 2D application, which looked like this. Sorry, I'm kind of going back and forth between slides. But we started off with a 2D interface that introduced what the environment would be like if you were in an actual recording studio. So what we're offering is a way for people to learn about it so that they could learn the different stages of signal flow, which I don't want to hit you with so many terms, but it's not as simple as just raising a fader. There's a lot that goes into the music and recording process that we wanted to make available and focus on how do we make it the most engaging for the most amateur person possible. By quick, yes.
One question. I know very, very little about audio engineering. Is the setup for an audio engineering console basically standardized, or are there manufacturer differences based on whoever manufactured the console?
It's like a car.
Okay.
So more or less it's the same, but like there are bad cars and good cars.
Okay.
So BMW versus Mercedes.
Gotcha. So with your console, it conforms to all of the basic standards. In terms
What
of
you see
design.
is over there is accessories.
Right, so it'll come around over here in a second, but that console is actually one of the bigger, broader consoles that's out on the market. The one that we have in the VR, in the Vive, is actually streamlined a lot more, so it'll be a lot easier to engage with less knobs. The original console had 3,000 parameters on it. I mean, a lot of them do the same thing. You just have to learn how to break it all down and see them as boxes. I'm sure it's like that with a lot of things. So we're first starting off with what are the most common components in a recording studio, bringing that to life, and from there we're going to stem out to how can we challenge the user more, make gear have different functions. Maybe two parameters do the same function but are named differently. Does that throw the person off? Can we increase that reaction time? So again, that's where it started on a 2D screen a couple of years ago. Now we have it in 3D, and it's super exciting because you're in a recording studio. Not how many, by raise of hands, how many people have been in a recording studio before? How many people listen to music? Okay, your music is going through some sort of recording process, and the glamorous, most the shrine of the process took place in these recording studios. They were limited. They had hardware that it's kind of like when we use computers now. I mean, we have such power that we can't even remember that people were playing Pokemon on a Game Boy and wandering around like that. I mean, there are so many things about it that it's really mind-boggling. The whole thing, this whole VR wave, and to be able to bring a recording studio to life for other people is insane. It's really incredible. I mean, for me, when I first got it working, it was a very emotional moment because I had graduated school and I thought I'd never be in one of those rooms again. And if I did, I'd be one of the lucky ones, and that'd just be one room. But now we could put someone in any room and challenge them in any way.
Why don't you tell them that why you decided to do something?
Okay. So when I was a student, I was pretty lucky to be around a lot of technology. Our school gave us a lot of gear. I was in labs double time. I wanted to know everything I could and take advantage of every second I could with the gear. But eventually you go home, and this is even while you're still a student. Forget the fact that you're about to graduate and probably never have that lab time again, especially if you're in a different state. So even on a 2D screen, in 2D I was satisfied, and then getting it in 3D for a 2D screen I was satisfied. Then one day I heard of this thing called virtual reality, and I was like, oh my God, I gotta make this thing work. And the tools are really, they complement all of us. I wasn't a programmer at the time when I came up with this idea. Now I have all these different skills because I wanted to bring this app to life. And yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to be sharing it with you today. So
Let me just add one
Go ahead.
sentence. So right now, audio engineering education is a privilege because you have to have a console, which is at least $100,000, and you have to have a studio, etc., etc. But if we have this available, like a guy from Nigeria with just $1 can like learn how to record something. That is where the power is.
I don't know if you see the slide, but why don't you tell me a little bit about what the current state is of audio education and the way you teach your students to engage in that environment?
Yeah, right now, like, first of all, they have to spend a lot of money. They have to come to the classroom. So we train them very, it's a very detailed process. We teach them what signal flow is, what theory is, etc., etc. And then in their like, in my school it is in their like 7th or 8th month, they touch a console. Now with this, they are immediately there. Like, you know how I learned how to swim? My uncle just threw me in water. And I was very angry, I remember that. Seriously, I still remember that I was angry. But I learned swimming. And I think, I mean, I'm not telling you to do the same thing. I think the sooner you get in the studio, the better it is for the audio engineering education. And we cannot, unfortunately, do that in real life. Because it's expensive. It's time consuming, a lot of energy, a lot of money. But if you have this, now the guy from Istanbul, the guy from Shanghai, the guy from, you know, like Bucharest, they're just going to do that immediately with their laptop, with their smartphone, when they take a bus. You know, so.
So you got a quick question, go ahead.
Yeah, just again, because I know pretty much nothing about audio engineering.
That's awesome.
Does the process of audio engineering also rely upon listening to what is being engineered while it is underway?
That's a very good question, and yes.
In that case, how are you handling that with mobile devices? Because I
Mobile
can't
device, that's a very
imagine
good
the
question.
audio output is that fine, high fidelity.
That's a very good question. So, like vision, sound can be simulated, and localization in terms of like when you walk, you know, you can actually create this in virtual environments. The same thing can be created with headphones. It's very easy. It's not hard at all. It's called binaural hearing or binaural recording, and also the fidelity of the process is, but we're still working on it, but it's totally doable, and it's almost like an old technology right now. Like they invented, I think, if I'm not mistaken, like in 1930s or something, the binaural recording. So it's totally doable. We can simulate how it sounds as well.
Do you need special headphones for that?
No, just regular earbuds. I mean, I don't like earbuds. I like the close version, but yes, no special headphones.
should just mention, because you see everyone sticking their hands out, this version of the mobile build, and this is with a regular phone. The phone that's inside there right now is an S5, which is a pre-VR phone that we were able to work with a local developer to bring an Xbox Connect with a phone so they could walk around and reach out and actually start to walk around this environment with a regular phone if you don't have this computer set up in the Vive. You know, getting your first steps into a studio could just be as easy as having a phone in that old Xbox Connect that you haven't used in 10 years. So,
If I want to press all these buttons to change them, your virtual reality, how can I do this? Do you have any kind of manipulate that?
so for the phone, they're actually coming out with a great solution for that in the fall. It's going to be Google Daydream, which is going to be, I mean, that's going to be, it's meant to be just for standing still, but we're going to use the same concept right here to just make it walk around.
Mhm.
We've had some other ideas like using the Wii, but as a developer, I'm always trying to make sure I don't go take on something that's going to change in a couple of months. Like this hand controller thing is becoming a standard. First it was Oculus and then the Vive. Those are standardized development kits. If you program for one, it's going to work with the other. That's amazing. I know my code is not really going to just change on me one day, which happens a lot for developers. That's a nightmare. It happens all the time. So in the fall, as far as mobile devices are concerned, you will be able to really get that hand interaction with some other complementing technologies. So real quick, I'm going to jump over to the video just so you guys, well, yeah. Okay, got sound, right? Yeah, you want to make sure you got sound coming out of
Yeah,
that?
no, we do.
Okay, so I'll get.
I'll make it louder.
Well, you're not gonna really hear anything until I turn it up. So if you want to try like while I'm doing the volume. No.
It's basic. Should we have the sound
We should be hearing that.
Yeah, I was hoping that we'd be able to hear the audio actually coming out of the, you know, when you change the volume, you hear the click.
That sound.
Just try.
Maybe it's like.
Okay, so I'll explain what's going on. Hopefully you guys will be able to hear it. But this is trying it with an HTC Vive and walking around that studio that you guys were just looking into on the phone. Okay, so the first thing that you would have to do in the studio, at least with the console, is allow the sound into the board. Oh, cool, we got sound. All right, so real quick, I'm gonna start that over. Perfect, thank you. So check it out. This is pretty much how our demo is going to work. And again, we streamlined a lot of this stuff so we don't have to bombard you with all this theory because there's a lot of theory. Pretty much we made it that you are going to be able to just walk up to the board. If you could remember 2 simple steps here, you're pretty much going to have
Grammys on the wall.
you got the band playing, okay? The band is automatically being routed into the board, and the first thing you're gonna have to do is turn up the volume knob, which is that red knob, and you'll see signal come up right away. Then you gotta grab the fader at the bottom, and it's already streamlined that you'll be able to just hear sound and just start having a little bit of fun with mixing. Okay? Really basic, primitive demo. And I want you guys to be able to first engage and see how you guys feel when you grab the knobs. Tell me how the feedback is. There's a version with a robot that tells you what to do, but we didn't actually give you any visual cues because we want to see how you respond to it. Do you understand when someone says, hey, grab the red knob? Are you totally lost? Or does it make sense to you right away? We'll probably have to get an arrow in there, you know. But I mean, this is total live mixing right now. So that's just some of the basic stuff, like adding equalizer, which you have in your car. You know, you have like the highs, mids, lows. Then a really cool thing, we got a patch bay. This is where things get complicated when you can start routing signals around. So let's see, did I start doing that just yet here?
So what you're saying right now is what a regular audio engineering student sees in his or her 6th or 7th month. That's the problem. And the beauty of it is not only that you can do this, but I can do it. I can record it, upload it in the cloud, people go and see what I did step by step. They can rewind it, they can fast forward. So one of the biggest challenges we have, can I turn it down? One of the biggest challenges we face as teachers in classroom is that we have to adjust the pace of the class based on the average level.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's the most anti-American thing I've ever heard in my life. If you think about it, we always go for the highest, the better, the best, etc. But when it comes to teaching, if I teach too fast, then some students are not going to get the whole picture. Or if I teach too slow now, these guys are going to do Facebook all the time. But in this scenario, what we do is we actually make time variable, not learning. Let me elaborate. So a student can spend 2 hours in this environment and learn the same thing, and another student can spend half an hour and learn the same thing. Now, time is variable, but they learn the same thing at the same level. Instead of giving a student A or B or C as a grade based on a test, why don't we just let them learn it A level by just spending more time? So that's the biggest. It's going to change education in the future. We're going to see future is now, right? We'll see it in about 5 years.
Where are you guys in terms of sort of the development process of this? Is this something that you're utilizing in classrooms right now? Is this something that you're going to be utilizing in classrooms?
I just showed it in my classroom last week. So we started
2D
doing
version.
that.
Starting with the 2D version. The 3D takes time to adopt because
Yeah.
not everyone has it yet, but we're in touch with HTC and we want to make it available. Yeah, it's a transitional phase for sure, and Mahmoud's definitely playing a huge part in that, and being our first educator. And as you can tell, he's a very bright individual. Very lucky to have him.
I had Brad.
So how are you going to be going into schools to offer this product to schools? So how do you deal with the classroom situation?
That's a really good question.
That's a really big challenge for
Now-
VR in education. We're so used to having what you talked about, the classroom with 15, 20, 30 kids in it, or people, and so you're going to hold the learning constant and vary the time,
Yes,
rather
exactly.
than the other way around.
Yes, exactly.
So what happens when the bell rings?
Now, you asked a beautiful question. Thank you for that, first of all. The biggest enemy of our ideas is the regulations.
Right.
So they're regulating, first of all, I don't want to get in politics or anything like that, but for example, the whole system is based on passing a test, for example. And this is quite the opposite of what we're doing. So it's really hard at this point to put this in the regulations. I talked to a few administrators, and they are trying to find their way around this, to be honest with you. But what we want is to just go slowly and find the middle ground on the way. What I think is, for example,